Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be having a look at the Air Maestro version 3.4 release notes. I hope everyone's safe in their homes and COVID-free. So, as usual, the format of this is we're going to have a look at the latest release notes and go through it item by item. You can find the latest release notes down here, along with the version number. So this is our UK demo site. We're on version 3.4. I can click here to see the release notes, which will open up for me. And we're going to go through these. So I'm going to log in. And as I log in, we get to the alert screen where I can see one of the new features, or I should be able to. You will be notified of any pending maintenance events that are due in the aircraft register. And I'll show you how to set those up as we get to the item. Okay, first things first, transfer recency contact roles. We can find that under Setup, Recency Setup, and Recency Settings and Roles. And there's a new button down here called Transfer Roles. So those of you who have dealt with me previously, you will know that I have been quite vociferous about my recommendation that you do not assign recency contacts to specific names and rather do it to a role. We know that's not always the best way to do it, so now we have a transfer roles button. And what this does is it lets you select a name. Let's say Elliot over here. I can see which recency items Elliot has been assigned to as a contact person. Maybe I can look at Robert or Rob. And I can also see that we have a couple of users who are no longer active, so no longer with the company, and therefore that notification needs to be routed to someone else. So let's look at Matt Hayes. I can say I want everything that he's responsible for, in this case, only induction training, and I want to transfer it. I can either duplicate those responsibilities to another user, I can reassign it and remove it from Matt, or I can remove this person from all of those recency contact items in one go. In this case, Matt's no longer active, so I'm just going to reassign and remove from him. And I can say that these need to go to the chief recency officer, the base recency officer, or someone else by name. Let's do Sarah. So I can click go, and you'll see that Matt no longer appears here. And if we go and have a look at the recency item itself, that has been successfully transferred. So that makes managing it quite a lot easier. Some scheduled recency improvements. When a recency check form was completed and a linked recency item was updated, the scheduled recency associated with that item was not cleared. So that's now been fixed. For those of you who are not familiar with this system, on each person's recency page, you have a scheduled column where you can choose to notify that person or that person and the trainer when this is going to be renewed or refreshed or revalidated. And you can just click on that, and it lets you choose a date, a trainer, location, any notes, and you can send an email on when you save that. So whenever these recency items were updated through the use of a check form, here under operations check forms, you would have to come and manually mark that as complete. That's now been corrected, and these will automatically clear. Scheduled recency items are also shown on the My Schedule section of the home screen. So on the home screen, we have this lovely little calendar on the left, which can either look at items by day, week, rolling week, month, or as a timeline. And any scheduled recencies will show up here as well. And I had one here. There we go. This will also show up on the schedule for the person designated as the trainer, i.e. the person conducting that training. These also appear in the roster. So if I go to our roster for Feb, and let's go across to February, going to expand the Edinburgh department, and I can see that here is my training, and it's also highlighted for Rob because he's conducting the training. All right, the ability to keep folders and headings collapsed by default in recency. So this saves per person, and I can go back to my profile, recency, and I have a little drop-down list at the top here, which says whether all these headings should be expanded or collapsed when I first come to this page. And then you can just expand the ones that you're interested in seeing. Quick search enhancements. So quick search is at the top here. It now allows you to search by audit reference number and by document names. So if I want to see all internal memos, I would type in memo. So we don't have any. If I want to look for audit number 30, I can click on that and it'll take me directly there. Work practices, some extra functionality in the standby limitations, mainly to do with this bottom line here. In terms of this checkbox, when a minimum of 8 hours and past 24 prior to completion of standby are not worked, standby counted shall be reduced by up to 10 hours. So that applies depending on your what your manual says. For forms, we have a sign-off enhancement where you can choose whether sign-off required is none, no sign-off required. Acknowledgement, so yes, I've received it, thank you. Approval, whether you approve or reject a form. To set that up, we go to settings, or setup. I'll go to form options. I'm going to select flight clearance form. And there's a radio button here, choosing what type of sign-off this form type requires. So in this case, flights need to be approved. They're being routed to me, so I can actually show you. And if I go and lodge one of those forms, let's go over here. Let's create a new flight clearance. I've made sure that there are very few required fields here, so I can just skip through the rest of that. And submit the form, request sign-offs. I can choose to approve or reject this. And rejecting it will send the person who submitted it an email, including the comments down below, and they will then be able to resubmit the form having made the appropriate changes. Oops. Okay. So that's now gone back to open because sign-offs were rejected. Roster note improvements. So for those of you who are not familiar, in the roster, on a specific shift for a specific day, you can attach a note giving instruction or information to that person. A note is shown in the roster with a little red corner like there. You can right click there, select edit note, and put in some text, which is useful both for the person creating the roster and the person conducting this shift. So if I go back to our home screen again and look at my schedule, I can see there's a little note icon there, which I can hover over to see the details of that shift and including the note. This is also shown in my timesheets next to the rostered shift with a little note icon. And again, I can hover over that and see the content of that note. Global reporting. Global reporting down at the bottom here has a new column for date last run, which is this last viewed column on the right-hand side. This applies when the report is run manually or when it is scheduled, so automatically generated. And this helps you see at a glance which reports are old and no longer being used and can safely be removed from the system to reduce clutter. Engineering endorsements. Character limit on the limitations section of the engineering endorsements has been increased from 100 characters to 250 characters. So that applies here under setup, engineering setup. We have this limitations section under an engineering endorsement attributes. And all it's saying is that the name here has been increased to 250 characters, so you can have more text in there rather than 100, which was previously the case. Aircraft maintenance alerts. So under setup, as usual, we come to aircraft notification setup. Previously, we had two tabs here: when an aircraft was serviceable, when an aircraft was unserviceable. Send the following email or SMS to these people. Now we have a new one called aircraft maintenance, and you can specify that a person, let's put myself in here, gets an email, an SMS, and a login alert. So when I go past that alert screen, I see a section there that I need to acknowledge. This up here is for all aircraft. So whenever something is coming due, I get an alert when I log in. Or you can specify responsible personnel per aircraft. So if you have certain aircraft at a training school, for example, and you have an RPA for the training school, and you have an RPA for your charter operation, you can split that using this lower table. To add personnel here, simply click Edit. You can select who receives login alerts, who receives email alerts, who receives SMSs, and click the tick mark. To remove all people from an aircraft, you simply need to click the bin over here. Fade. There's a new version of fade out called Fade Quantum. This, unfortunately, I'm not able to demonstrate for you. The only difference between the fade model that you might have on your site already and Fade Quantum is that it has a KSS score, which is a sleeplessness score. Unfortunately, if you wish to have this enabled, there is an additional cost as defined by Interdynamics, the people who developed Fade, and you will need to apply it with them directly. This 3.4 release focuses heavily on safety, so here's where we have the majority of our changes. Safety occurrence alerts that show up during the login process now have a menu item under My Profile, Safety Alerts. So that refers, if I go to My Profile, Safety Alerts, to this table, which is giving me a summary of what reports require my attention, what actions I've sent out or what actions I've received, what reports I have in draft status, and it gives me a shortcut to go and submit a safety report. There's also a refresh button. So if you make a change here, you would need to come and click refresh to have that change appear. Safety alerts and draft safety report grids now support filtering. So when you have reports in draft, and these ones here, you can filter to see, for example, report items of only high risk or medium risk. Safety actions. It's now possible to edit the labels for the following actions on the action pop-up. So let's go and have a look at one of those. Here's my action. I'm going to edit that. And we have the following fields: root cause, preventative action, and corrective action. Previously, these were hard-coded. Now you can change them. To do that, we're going to go to Setup, Safety Options, and we can make the change in these fields here. So I could rename that to Remedial Action, just for this demonstration. I'll go back to my safety alerts, have a look at this, this action over here. And you can see that's now called remedial action rather than preventative. Responses to safety actions now send email alerts to the other party. So what this means is that when Robin over here responds to this action, I will get an email. Whenever I put in a new comment by clicking respond over here, then she'll get an email. And that works for any action across the site. Whenever one party, requestor or requestee, responds to this action by putting in a comment, the other party will receive an email notifying them of such. Safety reports. Column picker has been updated to allow selection of all fields included in safety reports. So if I click on safety reports over here, that'll take me to my report register. And we have a new button here called Pick Columns, where you can include anything from any safety report. And let's say I want to see the, let's say aircraft. The aircraft involved with each of these reports. I'll select that, click Update Columns, and I'll see a new column on the right-hand side, which will show me that. Remember that you can filter by these columns using these this row on the top here. So that's a nice, easy way to see specific information in your report register. For the status and outcomes report, the event base is now included in the summary. So the status and outcomes report is here under General, Reporting, Status and Outcomes. And what this does is it gives you a very brief overview of the reports that are currently in the system according to these dates up here. And that's now going to include the event base as specified when submitting the report. And finally, and by far the biggest item in this checklist, is the offline safety reporting app. So as some of you may be aware, we do have an app for iOS that allows you to enter timesheets and flight records. We are now in the first stages of rolling out our new app. Currently, this allows you to lodge safety reports from any device, whether it's Android, Windows, iOS, macOS, anything at all, without any kind of data connection whatsoever. So to find that, you'll go to your URL, and we actually have a nice little guide hyperlinked here in the patch notes. In this case, I would say demo.airmaestro.co.uk/app. And depending on what device you log in from, there are different ways of installing this. So on my laptop here, there's usually a little plus button. Otherwise, in this case, I've already installed it, so I can just open that. And it is actually a discrete app on my laptop called Air Maestro Safety. You can log in with a PIN. And well, initially you'll need to log in with your username and password, after which you can specify a PIN. You can create a new report. These reports are drawn from your website. You can see reports that are in progress, reports that are waiting to sync to the server, and reports that have been submitted from this device. These reports are complete. All of your tabs, all of your customer information, your customization is reflected in this offline interface. This app is going to be expanded in the future. I don't have a specific timeline, but the next item that will be coming offline is forms. For Android, when you go to your URL/app, you will see a little banner pop up that says add to home screen. If you click yes, it will be installed. And for iOS, it's Chrome on iOS does not support this type of app, so you'll need to open it in Safari. Once you have this screen open, you can click share, add to home screen, and the app will be installed. And that is it. So if you require any assistance with any of that, or you'd like further explanation, please do not hesitate to contact us at help@cairnaviation.com, and we'll be in touch. Thank you for attending, and please stay safe.